Hornby Teak effect is too light and needs to be darkened. I am using a Games Workshop wash. Citadel Colour Shade Seraphim Sepia to give it its full name. I've not used it before, but it's supposedly easy to use even for us bodulars. A little while later, and the Break Third coach has now had no fewer than 7 thin coats of sepia wash. The card pieces are to prevent any wash sepiaing into the inside, and also to help holding the coach whilst applying the wash. Comparison with an untreated first third composite coach shows how much darker and better the Break coach is. I think it will look even better when varnished, so I will not apply any further coats for the moment. I will now work on the composite coach. As regular viewers will know, I weather everything that ever appears on my layout, and these coaches will be no exception. I wanted the coaches to look as if they had been in service, but at the same time remained relatively clean. I also wanted the teak effect to shine through. My normal weathering regime would have made them look too grubby, so a different method has been adopted this time. I am applying Humbrol dark wash with a very small brush to all the panelling detail. The product is very thin, and capillary action means that it runs freely into all of the recesses on the models. It does give a very good and convincing effect of dirt accumulating on all the raised areas. When it's dry, it does leave a faint outline, but the excess can be removed with a cotton bud, lightly moistened with enamel thinners. The sepia wash, being water-based, will be left behind and not removed. If you apply too much, whilst the black wash is still wet, simply dry your brush and remove the excess gently with a light dabbing action. The Break Third coach has already had the dark wash added. The improvement is very good, but very subtle, and it may not show up in this shot. The original one-piece glazing strips as supplied with the coaches will no longer fit once the lighting is installed. I didn't have any suitable glazing to hand, so I simply cut down the Hornby strips and lightly glued them to the insides of the coaches with Deluxe materials, glue and glaze. I wanted the sides and ends to be shiny enough to show off the teak finish underneath, but not too glossy as to make the finished models look rather too toy-like. The coach sides and ends were therefore varnished with a slightly dilute coat of Humbrol satin coat. I think this has given the effect I was after. I have now decided on the position of the battery box in the composite coach and lightly glued it into place. The wiring has been tucked out of the way, so it hopefully won't be able to be seen in the clerestory part of the roof. The battery holder will hang vertically in the end compartment between the seats. However, whilst it won't show too much in normal conditions, it will unfortunately mean that this compartment will be rather gloomy when the lights are on. An unfortunate compromise, but I simply couldn't find anywhere else to put the battery. The seating units are now being populated. Much surgery was needed to enable the passengers to fit properly, but all survived their operations and are now securely seated. At this stage, and I must say rather belatedly, I tried the seating units in the coaches and discovered two things. One, the seats were a very tight fit and didn't slide in very easily, particularly at floor level. Two, the seating units sat too high in the coaches, and far too much of the passengers' bodies could be seen. This was going to spoil the effect on the layout. The solution to the first problem was simply to take out the glazing strips and cut off about the bottom third and then re-glue them onto the coach sides. Luckily, I had used glue and glaze to stick them in the first place, and this is easily removable. The second problem required rather more thought and some quite drastic action. The underframe of the coach is held on by a couple of plastic lugs, there and there, and contains a huge plastic moulding which pokes up through the floor. The seating unit rested on this, which was why it sat too high in the coach. The underframe was removed, and about 2 millimeters were taken off the plastic lump. I also had to cut off the top section of one of the plastic lugs. There are also small plastic lugs around the inside of the body, which originally helped hold the Hornby glazing unit in place. These also had about 2 millimeters removed. The seating unit was tried for size again, and not only did it slide in easily, the seats and passengers were now at a much better height. The underframe will now no longer clip fit onto the coach body, so will have to be glued in place. As you are probably aware by now, I'm filming this as the project progresses, so I'm including any mistakes made along the way. Having reviewed the earlier close-up shot of the coach side, I have decided that the old Hornby glazing is now too scratched and must be replaced. So, for my third attempt at glazing, I found some more clear sheet from an old ratio signal kit, and I'm using that instead. The white plasticar pieces are to support the floor of the seating unit and keep it at the correct height. The seating unit is slightly bowed, so will be glued in place to keep it level. The seating units are now glued in place, and for the first time in ages the wheels are back in their bogies. The final stage, and I guess the moment of truth, will be to refit the roof and then try the lights. Well, I tried the lights with the roofs in place, but some of the LEDs could be clearly seen through the small clerestory windows. This didn't look realistic, so I decided to make these windows opaque. A very light greyish white was therefore brush painted onto the insides of the glazing strips. I think these windows do look a little too white now, and they do stand out rather against my dark grey roofs, but hopefully they will look much better when the lights are on. The completed composite coach with the lights off. The same coach with the lights on. The completed brake coach with the lights off, and with the lights on. And now, as usual, some shots of the finished coaches on the layout. And so to summarise, was it worth it? A lot of thought, time and effort have gone into this project, and at the end of the day the coaches are still only old Hornby Clerestories with all their inherent faults. The passengers still look a little high on their seats, and some of their heads touch the luggage racks, but maybe I'm being too fussy. But with the garage lights turned down, I think these coaches with their lights on actually look rather good. The amber LEDs look a little bit orange to my eyes, but maybe that's what these old coaches look like anyway. I have had some fun along the way and learnt some new techniques. I'm particularly pleased with the way that the Teak effect has come out, and so yes, I think it was worth it, and I'm pleased with the way that these very old coaches now look. So that's all for now. See you next time.